I'm in the studio.
You're in the studio.
So, yeah.
But you're home-ish.
So I'm in Stockholm. Oh, what do you mean? Yeah.
You're sort of in between tour dates. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're leaving tomorrow morning for some Swedish and Denmark and the UK.
That's nice, though. I mean, it seems like a nice way to tour, to get, some time at home in between shows.
Yeah, it's a little bit new for me because I'm more used to like going to the States for 3 weeks or something. So it's pretty good doing the weekend thing.
My jazz going experiences are, entirely limited to here in the States, and I've got a very, I suppose, limited notion of what a jazz venue is like, living in New York City for the last like 20 or so years. Is the experience similar in touring Europe?
I never toured like jazz places in the States, so, and I never toured jazz places here neither. So I'm like, I'm learning right now, but, so far it's been more like theaters and maybe some like rock venues. So it feels like, same, sort of like, smaller versions of like, the Apollo or something like that, like seated, but like a couple hundred people.
It seems like it's sort of primarily people are people who know you through your other work rather than people who are kind of finding you through jazz. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. It seems there's older people coming for sure. Like I think people interested in the music, jazz music. So maybe they just got old. People that they're like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. You're like, oh, who are all these old people? And then you look at them and you're like, oh,
yeah, exactly. Oh, it's my friends.
In a sense, I mean, this was kind of your first love, right? I mean, this was the first music. Was this the first? Would you say this jazz is kind of the first music that you really kind of got into, or that really piqued your interest?
First, like mid school, I did a lot of like playing synthesizer and mimicking like Depeche Mode and stuff like that. Jean-Michel Jarre. So this was more when I got like up to like 15, 16, then I started really like digging into the jazz thing. So it wasn't like first, but was pretty. I was pretty young at the time anyway.
It's always interesting. It's always a fun adventure going and trying to determine what in someone's biography is actually accurate, and how much information there can actually be gleaned off of like Discogs, for example. Is it true that your father was in a band called the Spotlights?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a 60s instrumental, sort of like, there's another band called Spotnex from Sweden, which they're doing the same thing like Shadows or The Ventures, something like that. So instrumental guitar surf, yeah, 60s band, exactly.
There was a fair bit of music growing up. I mean, your father was pretty supportive of you getting into this?
Yeah, for sure. He had a lot of instruments, and at that time it was, of course, in the 80s. So there was like not only like tape echoes and old guitars. It was more like JX3P, Roland or whatever, some synth stuff, and maybe like a drum machine or something like that too. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Peter some months ago when his last project came out, and there was a lot around that. And just generally speaking, I think when people talk about him, one of the things they talk about is this, rural upbringing he had, and like, kind of like how isolated a lot of it was. And obviously, you had a connection to music through your father, but I mean, you weren't super far from Stockholm, right? I mean, you were able to kind of go into the city and experience music that way.
That was because I moved when I was 15. Before that, I was totally out in nowhere. So it was like the same for me as for him. No neighbors and no people around. So but that was up till 15. Then I moved, so it's a little bit of a change for me. But that's also, he moved as well when he was 15, 16, and that's where we met. So in sort of a high school music thing, so definitely different from the first. I think for him as well, you get into a school and you meet people that have the same interest, and like, so well, me and him had sort of the same interest in rock music, so the indie rock music. So, but then I had other people doing the jazz thing more. So there was a big different shift when we turned 15, 16.
Time frame wise, especially not having super direct access to a big city like that. How much knowledge did you actually have that there was this sort of entire world, outside of obviously, like, Depeche Mode being popular music of the time, the things that your father was introducing, and then jazz to a certain extent?
I mean, I knew there was studios and like they had tape machines, but I didn't really know how they worked, and I've never been into a studio before. I was maybe like, I don't know, 18. So what kind of music was around when I grew up? It was more like people playing live and with people dancing to it, and they had like, maybe it's called dance band in Sweden, Swedish dance band tradition, and playing sort of like popular songs in the weekends. That like, so my friend's dad had such a band, and they had a big tour bus actually striped with their name on. It was kind of, so it was the first tour bus I went. So I went to, I enjoyed a tour bus before I ever went into a studio. But I like tour buses, but I like studios more now.
You came into, I guess, your first recording device by way of having appeared on a game show as a child. Is that right?
Yeah. So I got second place, and I got like a trip to Copenhagen or something. But then I didn't want to go to Copenhagen, so I could exchange that to for Porta Studio tape machine and a couple AKG headphones.
How old were you at the time?
14, I think.
Okay, so that was before you moved then.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
How does that, so kid in rural Sweden, how do you end up on a game show on television?
I guess it was like a school thing, and I was just like, I don't know, maybe I knew more than my friends, But then I did pretty well, so it was like that was the big surprise. But I guess it was like around the city where we were or something. They made it up there or something. So it was just a brush of luck. But then I started doing the 4-track thing at home and writing songs and all that stuff. So it was pretty, yeah. Well, sort of a studio, I guess, but in a little way, a very basic studio, anyway.
I feel like you're being modest. I mean, I suspect you must have been maybe a good student or something if you're able to score, second place on this game show where they're sending you to Copenhagen.
Yeah, I guess the TV was on all the time or something. It's
You
like
knew a lot of like popular culture kind of thing.
There was like only 2 channels in Sweden, so you saw like some boring TV series, or they always watch the news. So I guess that's why you always pick up the news. I think it's a pretty good thing. But no, maybe I was good at remembering things. I don't know.
In terms of actually, studying music, because it sounds like you did have a formal training. Was that something that really that you started getting into once you moved, once you were 15 and moved away?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really pay attention to piano lessons and stuff like that before I moved, and then I had a classical piano teacher, which I, gave a fair chance for sure, but she was not. I wasn't her best student. I was trying to play some Beethoven and stuff like that. So, but I anyway like practiced, you know, enough to like get through that stuff. And then when I turned like 17, maybe 16, 17, after a couple of years, I got to go to a jazz pianist called Esbjörn Svensson, who's at the time, they didn't break through at that time, but like a couple years later, he got to be like the biggest jazz star from Sweden in a long time, maybe like ever, almost. There's a couple more. But so I went to Stockholm to take lessons for him, and that just changed the whole thing really for me. So that was a biggie.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar. He didn't, I think, make a huge. Unfortunately, he isn't very well known over here. I was listening to him, and I liked it very much. How did you? Again, he really became a big deal over there. How did you get in with him specifically?
He was from the same town, and they started doing jam sessions at the local jazz club, which me and my classmates went to, a couple of times a week because we could go there for free because our maths teacher was running the place. So he had us come there for free and maybe like taking care of lights or something like that, and doing some work too. Yeah, a little work, and we could also go there. So I saw and he had a really great taste, and he was booking big acts, free jazz, and also like other stuff. So it was like and then they started like the jam session thing, and then Esbjörn and his trio was sort of the band for the jam sessions,
like the house band.
The house band, yeah.
You were alluding to the fact that maybe you weren't the best student with the classical. You just didn't really. You didn't take to the music. You found it kind of boring at the time, or?
It wasn't my thing, but I learned enough. I practiced quite a lot to be honest, but I'm not. I practiced enough. Let's say that. But
you got the basics, the fundamentals.
Yeah, and I could play some stuff, but I wasn't really into like playing other people's music that much. I was like more like liking improvisation and writing songs. That's what I was more interested in.
So you took to jazz pretty quickly then, it sounds like.
Yeah, because other people did, like Magnus, a friend of mine he was a saxophone player, but he played. His dad was actually also in a dance band, so he played every instrument because he filled out in that band of his dad's. And he was a really great player already when he was 15, 16. So when he was, I think he was 19 when he played with Herbie Hancock for the first time, and he called me in the middle of the night like, I'm playing with Herbie Hancock on. I'm like, that was just unbelievable. But he was great, and he's still great, and he's on my record, Yttling Jazz record as well. So he lives in Stockholm, so we hang out, and that's fantastic. So I saw him playing. I think it was maybe 94, around. That he played with Herbie Hancock in Stockholm and maybe more places as well.
I would imagine that it's a pretty tight-knit community around Stockholm jazz specifically.
Yeah, I think it's a Nordic thing, a little bit Norway, and there's a lot of players in Stockholm, Gothenburg, and like Denmark has a good deal. And I don't know them so well, but they also go everywhere, like Japan, Europe, of course. Like some people I think Esbjörn was bigger in like Germany and continental Europe than maybe UK as well. Then the States is of course hard to get into, but there's a lot of activity like Japan and Europe as well.
Were you able to reconnect with him? Did you continue playing with him at all before he passed?
With Magnus?
Yeah.
Esbjörn.
Yeah. Esbjörn, yeah.
Esbjörn passed away, unfortunately. But I played. So I knew him. He was sort of on his own journey for sure with his trio. But I also played with his trio on some records when I started producing more like rock stuff, and that's how I did some. And also the bass player of his band is playing with me now. So that was sort of like it was a nice reunion for us, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a really just horrible sort of freak thing, and it would have happened sort of right around the time, I guess, that your career was really taking off. Around,
I was sort of going in more to like indie rock at the time, and I was sort of leaving the jazz thing a little bit, but yeah, so I didn't see him that much, but no, it was horrible.
It's interesting, I think this must have been maybe around the time that you were you maybe you're 10 or so years ago when you were last promoting some of your jazz work, and I think you were essentially kind of defining some of the distinction between Swedish and I guess some American jazz, or at least jazz that you would have been producing living out in sunny Los Angeles, where it's 22 degrees every single day, and you described a kind of melancholy, and I think that applies to probably a lot of what he was making. I mean, that seems to be really kind of in that vein.
Yeah, I think I feel it. I've been in LA for a long time. I also lived in New York. And of course, it affects you, like the city and the environment and the weather too, for sure. It's like, so it feels like we're digging, out, I don't know, ice, it's just like, it's a little bit like rougher up here in Sweden for sure. So it's definitely showing in music that's being made here.
I mean, I guess in a sense that, maybe New York isn't, maybe in a way New York is maybe a little bit closer to Sweden than Los Angeles, really.
Yeah, it is, but it's of course like more lonely here in the back street of the world.
To listen to a lot of what's on this record, I mean, this is some very upbeat stuff on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so. I like sort of like a little energy, and I'm sort of like looking into Mingus for sure. I love Charles Mingus, but I've been looking into like Ellington for quite a bit too. But also like Benny Goodman and older stuff, where there's more like energy and less like fine dining sort of jazz, So I've been more looking into the Gene Krupa atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah. Some sort of some big band stuff, or swing stuff, I guess you would say. Yeah, it's this is always I've had many jazz artists, and certainly this is an interesting. I don't know if it's interesting. It's interesting to me. They're probably sick of talking about it, but I don't talk to a lot of jazz artists, so I'm not sick of talking about it. But this sort of constant push and pull for contemporary jazz musicians between, trying to be contemporary and paying homage to old stuff without becoming sort of a retro act, because jazz is by its nature, or has been, supposed to this sort of like defiant, forward-looking art form. And
Yeah,
there's
I
always
guess it's like
yeah.
I think it's like any other music style of music, but that we want to like push it, but also like go back. So, but I feel in Sweden maybe it's been free jazz has a kind of a big grip on it, and also like of course like the big ones like Coltrane and Ornette Coleman, sort of like earlier stuff. But but I think the earlier stuff, the big band stuff has not been. It's been more like it's been big bands been playing big band music, and that's not always the hippest environment I feel for like. But I've been listening back to like Lionel Hampton and stuff like that. But it's more like energy wise and like shorter solos maybe, and then maybe Duke Ellington at Gröna Lund in Sweden 62. It's like I've been listening like how are they like, what's the vibe there, and like he can play whatever he wants to, but he use this and that. It's interesting, like I think so sometimes the big band scene has been a little bit more like museum style, maybe, or like too much like modern, crazy 12 tone, I don't know, just like out there. So it's using a little bit of that old school thing in sort of like regular. So I think to me, it feels kind of fresh, I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, in a way that can be defiant, right? If free jazz is the norm, then sort of going back and mining that territory can feel like you're pushing against something.
Yeah, and then I feel like the sort of soul influence on the jazz music, which is kind of big, I guess, right now, like the neo soul sort of like drumming and stuff like that. I'm not so interested in that with actually. So I feel that's not really I like the more like krauty sort of like monotone vibe, for me. So I feel that's to me a little bit fresh too. Like maybe just like doing one note, like a little krautrock vibe.
Yeah, I think about it might have, I don't know if it was actually Elvis Costello or if it's one of those things, if it's like apocryphal. Yeah, but there's this idea in pop music that like a really great pop song can be played on any instrument, right? That if the bones are there, and I think that, I think that Ellington is a perfect example of that, right? Like a really good melody is something. Take the A Train is a great example of a song that like doesn't matter what instrument it's played on. If it's a great melody, it can be played.
Yeah,
you can tell what song you're playing.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also feel that the opposite is true. If it's, that a good musician can play any melody and make it interesting, So, and like almost like a good talker can talk about anything and make it interesting. Like I'm not one of those, but I, I try to bring those guys with me. So. When I play live, it's more like I'm like trying to I'm giving space to the great players I have with me. So live, different things. Some stuff can be very arranged, and then I have longer solos, or like even like just soloing for a longer time, or So I feel that can be more live on the record, on the album. I've been keeping the solos a little bit shorter, I feel, but just for I like to hear long solos, but I think they're better live than on record, actually.
I guess I partially say that again because one of the things that came up. This was interesting to me. I'm sure that again, talk about things that people are sick of talking about, but this idea that huge Peter, Björn and John song came out of a jazz melody. It was interesting just because of this, again, just idea that this core melody was there, and that it can kind of transcend genre. But it sounds like what you're getting at is that that the live performance and the studio performance in a way are just sort of two really different beasts.
Yeah, and I feel I mean, it's the same with pop music. You have to come up with an interesting, take on the song. But the good thing with the jazz project here, Yttling Jazz live, is that you can do it every night, and people sort of expect it to be a different version, And when you play with Lykke or Peter, Björn, John, they expect it to be the same as on the record. So I feel that it's much more liberating. That actually it makes sense to like switch up the arrangements and the tempos and whatever you want to switch up, So
was that something that kind of starts to get to you after a while, being in a band and touring for an extended period of time, is having to go out there and effectively playing as close to as possible night after night?
I think it's okay. It's like a different task to do that, and it's like James Brown. You play the same beat for 7 minutes. It's just like if you change it, it sucks. So it's like you just have to like keep playing. So I feel that I got into that, but
the discipline of it.
Yeah, but when we're playing like a trio, me and Peter and John, we take a lot of liberties and we're improvising quite a lot, but we're trying to make it like it's not improvised. It's kind of funny. So we're going out on a limb, and then we're coming back in a way that seems like we arranged it, but we can't do it on every song, of course.
Like, how much can we push it?
Yeah, and that's kind of funny. So we do that, and then when I do that with Yttling Jazz, it's more like we're pretending we didn't arrange it. That everything is improvisation. So it's like the opposite. Like it's not cool to improvise in pop, and it's not cool to arrange in jazz. So I mean, it's cool but you see what I'm saying? It's cooler if it's like improvised and like everybody came up. But so of course doing a little bit of both, and I feel. Yeah, it's a big. Well, you're right. It's a big difference from maybe playing with what we did, like a symphonic orchestra with Lykke last year or something. It was like you have to play the same. You can't just like add a bar. It's gonna go. It's gonna go. So of course it feels pretty good, and especially with the Yttling Jazz thing, I can extend or hold, or I have a little like sign language thing. As a normal thing, head arrangement thing. So keep on the chord, go to this, four, chord 4, or different one, A theme, B theme, of course, like playing more. This is more like free jazz. Like you can like dissolve, I have different, and a point that people like doing. I can steer it how I want it. There's no song, there's no vocal. So that's of course easier, So that feels really cool and sort of fresh to me.
So it sounds like there are nights when you feel like you're a rock guy making jazz, and there are nights when you feel like you're a jazz guy making rock music. Is that
yeah. I can't decide really. So
at that point in your life, again, I was sort of talking about this before, that period when Peter, Björn, and John was really taking off. It sounds like jazz really did have to sort of take a back seat, right? Because this was, this is where you were finding your success, and you just kind of had to just let it go for a while.
Yeah, because I did the first Yttling Jazz album I did 2005, and that was when when we started doing Writer's Block as well in the fall. So it took like a year before it was out. When we recorded, it was out 2006, Writer's Block. So we did Young Folks probably 2005, maybe within a week from when I did the Yttling Jazz first record. We recorded the last bits of Young Folks, because that's why I prepared the song first to become a jazz song, and then I thought it was too much Ellington, so I switched it and put it towards the band instead.
Isn't that a weird?
Yeah, it's weird. And then of course when and then when we broke through, there was no one asked me to do a jazz album for sure. So it was like it was a little bit tough to like keep it up.
It worked out well in hindsight, but it's a funny thing to think about now, especially now that we're talking about this record and
Yeah.
come back to Ellington Jazz in this major way, that the reason why that was rejected for a jazz album is that it was too much like Duke Ellington.
Yeah. I'm very sensitive to those kind of things. No, but I felt like it's like this was like sounds like Far East Suite or something, like it. So I just thought it's just going to sound like a ripoff. So
Oh, I see. It was too close to an actual song.
Yeah, no, not really. Just the vibe, like a little bit like I love those records. So, but sometimes I don't know. I wasn't really sure what kind of jazz I was doing and I'm not sure now either. But you you have to like it's like I was more into maybe the sort of Money Jungle type of thing in Ellington's, like a little bit more rowdy stuff, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I mean, did you, when you're younger too, was it more important, or did you feel like you had to be more experimental, or that you had to push things a little bit more?
All my friends was sort of like into not all of them, but a good bunch was into like the free jazz thing. So I was listening a lot to it, but I was not, I was doing it as well, but I wasn't like, it's great, live, but I don't know. I'm listening more to like bluesier stuff or like arranged stuff when I'm at home. So I love going to a good, like maybe like Mats Gustafsson or there's some great free jazz people, but a great concert, but not so much listening to it at home. So I felt like if I'm making a record, I want to make more melodic stuff. That's the Mingus, Monk, that sort of stuff.
Specifically, how did you come back to this after all this time?
So I was playing piano with a friend. He's in the Teddy Bears, and he was Jocke Åhlund, and he made a jazz album, and he had me play some piano on that album. And then he just said he's a funny guy, and he said like it wasn't funny, but it was like it was true. To me, if I could play like that on piano, I would do it all the time. He said like it wasn't. It was okay. It wasn't like mind blowing. It was just different from what I usually do. So I thought like maybe he's right. Why I enjoy it. So why not do it more? So then that sort of planted a seed, and I started doing more. I started like writing a little bit more at home, and then I just like booked some sessions with the players that I have on the record. So, and I started like sort of a little bit like pre-prod doing stuff in this Ingrid studio here where I'm at right now, and bringing in like Matthias on vibraphone and little drums, and like just like trying some stuff out. And then I just kept doing that, like a session every, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks or something. And then I just listened back, and then I did more sessions, and eventually it became an album.
I get the sense maybe that, like, generally speaking, the projects that you do, that you choose to do, or maybe the projects that kind of define your schedule, are beholden to other people's schedules, right? That are beholden to like what you're producing or the music that they're making to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing a lot with people, so then it's more like in out. You make a couple songs, but and also, and if you produce a full album for someone, it's very much on their schedule for sure. And then I'm doing like Abstract Crime Wave, which is a band with Jocke, and I'm doing Peter Björn John, and I'm doing Lykke Li. So with her, it's on her schedule, but we're doing a lot together. So I've been scaling down on like other people's projects for sure, and just working with friends recently. But this is, of course, different. It's just me. I'm the artist, and I'm the producer, so I can tell the artist to shut up, and and just like do whatever I want. So, or the artist can tell the producer to shut up. So it's like, yeah,
Just constant fighting between the artists.
it's constant fighting, and if it's not good, I just have to take responsibility and try better. That's the whole thing. I can't blame anyone.
What happens? Why? What sort of pushed you in that direction to start doing these more sort of, I guess, personal projects of late?
You know what? A little bit of the pandemic changed the pace here in Sweden, because people didn't fly over from the UK or the States. So we started to like, oh, you want to reach Robin? Well, she's at home and she's up for it. So it should be, we started like working with other Swedish people they're not on tour anyway during the pandemic. So it was kind of easy to find time for different. So, and then it was also easy to like cancel sessions. So after a while with that, someone coughed, I'm feeling a bit, cancel. So everybody got into like, we're canceling. It was like all the time. So, I think after that, it slowed down a little bit. Now it's probably for people younger than me and like in a different, stage of their career, it's probably back to normal and all that. But I sort of kept a little bit of that like canceling mentality.
I know. And so much of it, I mean, this is just, and I've noticed this too, like for me, I was going into the office every day and the pandemic happened, and I kind of, doing this virtually, I was very insistent that I do every interview in person. I started doing them virtually, and I was just like, oh, I don't know why I forced myself to do that. Especially when you're younger, so much of life is just driven by this momentum. And then once you slow down, it's just, oh yeah, this is fine too, I guess.
Yeah. Losing my edge.
Yeah, but it sounds like a little
gaining
bit.
Other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. There we go. Gaining other stuff, and realizing that that there is something to be gained, and it sounds like that you are finding sort of fulfillment in collaborating locally and doing music in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I did one Zoom session, and that was it, because it didn't work for me. So it was like, I mean, it's just not fun for me. So yeah, that was it.
I have to ask you, like on the note of collaborating pre-pandemic, how did the Chrissy Hine thing happen?
Yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, that was before, right? So someone, I think from the publisher or something, recommended me for her. She came over, and we wrote some songs. She wanted me to produce the record. I said no, I don't want to do it. She was kind of bad shape at the time, so she was kind of annoying. but then I said go to someone else, and she came back and wrote more songs, and she said, I googled you produce. I'm like, no. Oh, okay. And then she said, like, can't you produce the record? I'm like, well, I can't do it if you get Neil Young to play on the record. And then she said, of course I can get Neil Young to play on the record. I'm like, sure. Then it happened, so I had to produce the record. So it turned out it was really great, and she got in a better shape and come into a better place, you know. So it was all great, and she's a good friend now. So it feels that was very, very, very happy that happened.
You respected her and liked her music, but she was just, you know, it's tough to sort of be around and try to work with somebody who's in a position like that.
I mean, she's very tough and maybe annoying when she's in a good place too. So you got to be like prepared, but because she knows what she wants, and she's really good, like lyricist, and she's definitely easy to work with. But I didn't know that at the time. So it was sort of like her persona was playing tricks on me. So, but no, I think we had a great time, and we did more stuff. And we're still collabing and seeing each other. If I go to London, I see her, and when at that time I had this apartment in New York, and she was in New York. She's like, "Yeah, I'm getting an apartment as well." I'm like, "Great!" I'm like, she's moving in. No, so we had we've been traveling and doing fun things and writing songs, and it's been fun.
This is something that Peter and I were talking about quite a bit, and I'm kind of curious to get your take on this because. You know, at the time that we were talking, obviously this is still the case, but at the time we were talking, it was all these, you know, these like big anniversaries. Some were postponed for the pandemic, but like anniversary tours, right? All these sort of like big numbers, and I'm just, it's interesting to sort of reflect on that, and these sorts of anniversaries are an opportunity to kind of look back, and I'm curious, especially now that you've reconnected with this other part of your career and are you know, out playing jazz again. I'm curious that side, you know, playing with those two guys. Do you feel that that's also something that you're going to just continue to keep coming back to over the years?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing separate things, and unfortunately, John has a bad tinnitus issue, so he can't play really live. But we can play stuff in the studio. So we're playing. We played before Christmas. Went to Jakarta, and we're playing in May. Some shows, and probably in the fall too. So it's a good. You know, league of gentlemen. No, but it's a good, like you know, like you know, little like hang out with them and playing songs that we still love, and it's like we have a good vibe and a good chemistry when we play. So that's for sure. But then I'm also enjoying last tour with Lykke. It was the first time I played with her live, and I made 5 records with her. So that was a fun experience for me. And now I'm playing with her live in this coming spring as well. So that's definitely a good thing for me as well. So I'm switching between Yttling Jazz, Lykke Li, and Peter Björn John this year, I guess. So it's a great setup for me.